All right, hey, so we are live. This is Building Bridges. I'm Nerd Girl. I'm so excited that my guest today is Abhitej Singh from Persistence One. I want to get you guys all introduced to Abhitej, but first I do have a couple of announcements to make. So the first thing is that I'm going to be adding a second show during the week. It's probably going to be 1 weeknight. Just there've been a lot of new requests for guests, and I'm like either booking 3 weeks out, or I'm like, we just need to add a second night. So that's going to be exciting. I'll let you guys know what night that's going to be as soon as I am sure. First, let's do a message from my sponsor. What do you have? So last week, Sophia made two squishies, two paper squishies. One was a Bitcoin one was a Hex one. And we ended up selling, they both sold. So this week she made two new squishies. Can you show them? So one is a Persistence One squishy, and the other one is a Pulse squishy. So if anybody wants one of those, hit me up. She can also make more. You'd be willing to make more, right?
I'll make any type.
And what is the cost of these squishies?
$3.
$3 plus shipping.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Anything else, baby?
Nope.
Okay. Oh, you know what, guys? Sophia is working really hard on building her TikTok following. So if anybody is on TikTok, please go follow her. She is Pink Princess 110.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Awesome, baby.
All right.
Okay, so there's my message from my sponsor. I told you we're adding a second show. I want to do a disclaimer really quick just to let you know, because Persistence One is a client of LDA, Lunar Digital Assets, which is the company that I work for. So you need to know that legally before we continue. All right. So Abhitej, thank you so much. Persistence is like one of the most, I think everybody probably wants to talk to someone on the team right now. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
No, absolutely. It's a privilege to be here. And thank you so much for inviting. I'm very excited to see those squishies, one of Persistence, and, and a huge shout out to Sophia and anyone, please do follow her on TikTok. The kids like these are, the future of where we are headed. Where those kids are going to be living in the world of decentralization. Thank you so much, Sophia. And I'm sure she's not here, but thank you so much for creating those squishies. I love it. And do let me know who buys it. So I'm sure that the value of these squishies is going to go higher, only higher as the time goes.
Well, I'm having her, I'm giving her the cash for them and then collecting the funds and cryptocurrency that I'll also just hold for her. But
yeah, definitely.
All right. So Abhitej, you're here because there's kind of I told you a little bit, this is really a Hex community show that's about building bridges between communities. You and the team at Persistence have been really great with that. You have relationships with people from, outside of, not necessarily competitors, but so Persistence is built on Cosmos, but in your ecosystem graphic that we've all been working on for a while, we've got other blockchains ecosystems within there. So you've got relationships with people from Polkadot, from other groups, and you don't really see that as a problem, and that's really unique.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, before we dive into talking about Persistence and how we are building, I want to give a quick introduction to the community about myself. So I take care of the marketing strategy and community at Persistence. I've been working with the team since the very early days, in 2019. Before joining Persistence was helping early stage startups with their community building, user acquisition, growth. And that was also when I was hustling with just finding out the right fit for me into crypto. And I was helping with communities like Cosmos was one of the interests and was a booming ecosystem back then. And that's where I was learning. And before that, I was Like I got into crypto through Bitcoin investing, much like most of us in the space, and was very fascinated about this idea because I had a lot of friends in college who were like very nerdy and were into security hacking, and they were earning bounties in Bitcoin. And I was really fascinated about the discussions we would have as how this is going to be the currency of future, and they were going to see the different ecosystems that would weave around this technology itself, and there would be so much utility for it in future. Of course, I didn't anticipate that in just like a couple of years from now I would be part of the building that ecosystems, and it's truly a privilege to be part of such a revolution at such an early age. So yeah, absolutely. This is like a quick introduction about myself. Talking about persistence, as you mentioned, persistence is basically an interoperable protocol that is powering next-gen financial products. When I say next-gen financial products, this includes a lot of different asset classes that we are bringing in. Staking as an asset class. We are bringing real-world assets on chain. And from those is like your invoice financing or trade financing, and these are different sort of assets that we're weaving in. To break it down in a very simplistic terms, I would say persistence is an ecosystem of financial products that includes DEXs, marketplaces, lending, borrowing protocols, or debt financing or trade financing applications. And now we're creating multiple staking applications, which would allow people to leverage on their proof of stake assets. So this is what we are doing. And as you mentioned, like our tech stack is very agnostic. What we are trying to build is as we go out, and we don't say we are a network, we're not a blockchain. What we're trying to create is a protocol that works with all different ecosystems, including, say, for example, we are tenement-based chain, so very much integrated into Cosmos ecosystem, working with chains like Terra, Kava, Audits, and then from there on, like we have right now, our applications are based on Ethereum plus Cosmos plus persistence. In future, we are building now bridges with Binance Smart Chain, Polkadot, and this is, I believe, personally, this is the only way to grow forward. Is when you are not competing to be another blockchain, but you're just trying to bring together all different ecosystems, and then you're providing that value for users on these different chains through products that sit on these different chains. And there is this philosophy of coexisting, and we have seen that in internet. We have in internet era where different protocols have come together, different companies have come together, and they exist. Similar, we will see in blockchain, where each blockchain or each ecosystem will have its own unique offering, and all of them can coexist in this space. Yeah. And persistence wants to be that layer on top of it.
yeah, you do. So one thing that I really wanted to talk about with this, this community specifically, is that there's a lot of like negativity about the idea of NFTs, and saying that, NFTs are going to get people wrecked because they're not really, like the technology to build enterprise NFTs isn't really where it needs to be. And I think that's really not the case with persistence. So I wanted to share a little bit about what you're doing with enterprise NFTs and bringing real world assets on chain, and how that's changing, traditional finance.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And, I understand where the community is coming from. Every time there is a new technology, there is a lot of hype, and then you see a lot of experimentation. That experimentation goes both ways. There are good aspects to it. There's bad aspects to it. So there's like a lot of money making that is involved. And that's what, a lot of people fear right now with NFT space. But we have seen that same with, cryptocurrencies back in 2017, when there was this ICO era, where like the projects were spinning up back to back, and people were based on just a white paper, people would raise a lot of money, and most of those projects have fizzled out when you entered in the bear market. But what did that allow? That allowed to first get attention of the whole overall community, the whole overall finance community towards cryptocurrencies. And second, what it allows was that bring in some capital into the ecosystem, which allowed new projects to build up. And we have seen like very good projects to survive that ICO bubble and then build great projects. Aave is a great example, which built Atlant. You have examples like Compound, Uniswap. A lot of those have went on to become now the standards for the industry. And same state is like for NFTs today. Do you see like this, it's just like getting started. So a lot of projects just are spinning up, but people fear like what is the safety. So there is a concept called persistence, as much like the name of persistence. But the concept is called how you would assure that your NFTs are safe and secure. That is something that is a very critical issue right now, and a lot of people have talked about it. But what happens is as the community matures, as we have seen in cryptocurrencies, the due diligence increases. Then the threshold to bring in some asset into the market also increases, because then the community has matured enough. They understand which are good assets, which are just like assets that over the time will not be value accrual assets. And then at the same time, you also see a lot of analysts that come around that ecosystem. You see tooling that develops around that ecosystem that allows that ecosystem to become more secure, and it becomes more easy, I would say, and more for any beginner to get in. The barriers are decreased with increased security. So that happens with any sort of new phase in the technology. Right now we are in NFTs. When talking about persistence, so persistence is not like was working on NFTs much before the wave of NFTs hit. So much before NFTs were a trend. So that's what I was trying to say is persistence is not just riding the wave. Persistence has been pioneering in the space of NFTs since 2019. And in fact, we did the first cross-chain NFT transaction. So between like one chain and another chain, we did an NFT transaction. Happy to share the link, when and allowed about in the chat, where Cosmos has published it on their blog, how we did that first NFT transaction between two different chains. So what persistence has started with vision was to solve a lot of problems in the traditional finance space, where we see that there are major problems are including auditability, immutability, and trustlessness. And we saw a huge potential for these areas in commodity trading space, where traders today trade only with other traders that they have known for some time. So there are a lot of resources are invested in relationship building. So trust has to be enforced through like relationship. Second is like a lot of times how commodity trading space works is there are a lot of frauds happens because of the complication of the space itself. But we saw that these problems can be solved using a blockchain solution, and that's how we started working with a team called Comdex, which wanted to build a marketplace on top of blockchain, which would solve these problems, auditability, auditability first. Second is immutability. Third was, of course, like how you would create the interoperability with like the Web 2.0 applications, and now and with the security of the blockchain. So what we did is what we do with Comdex is to explain people is what we are doing is bringing off-chain real-world assets, that is business documents, invoices, and there's this shipment document called Oceanic Bill of Lading, OBLs, which is very important part of the shipment that defines the ownership of that shipment or consignment. So what we are doing is bringing those assets on chain in form of NFTs. How we do it is we abstract the we extract the most valuable information from these invoices, which is like very unique, including invoice number, what is the amount, what is the origination of that shipment or that invoice, and then add that to the metadata of the digital representation, which is NFT of that asset. So this is how we started our journey with Comdex, building a solution for the commodity trading space and bringing these real world assets on chain through NFTs. So the vision was very clear. Like we didn't think that we want to create um, crypto art or collectibles back then. Our vision was like, how do we leverage this unique technology, like these unique assets, to represent these unique assets that exist in real world, and then make the exchange of the assets, that is like this value flow, very easy and simple. And that is how we started working on. And Tushar and Dipanshu, who are the co-founders of Persistence, Dipanshu has been working a lot on the technology side. He has been pioneered in a lot of fronts, right from being part of the Ethereum ecosystem and then creating like financial products that went on to be bought by some of the biggest organization, which like namely is Reliance, which is the biggest company in India. And the Tushar coming from a financial background that allowed to weave into this, the technology aspect, the financial aspect, and then understand the complications of the space itself. So, high level, this is what we are doing with what we started with, when you said, how are we converting those as an enterprise use case? But today, our scope has grown multifold, and we'll talk more about in the session going forward.
Yeah. So, by the way, guys, I know that you guys don't usually hold back, but I haven't seen a lot of questions for Abhitej coming in the chat. So if you have them, please post them. And I know that a lot of you do have questions about how NFTs are working and how are they not going to end up wrecking people. I know lots of people within this community, within this audience have questions. Don't hold back. Bring them in. One thing I definitely want to highlight is, I think I told you, Abhitej, that Hex is a product that has really received a lot of negativity from the outside crypto space, and as a result, kind of feels, the need to defend. It's like defensiveness happens when there's resistance. And I think I told you one of the really advantageous thing about Hex from the beginning was that it was the first audited project or product on the market, and Persistence has been audited as well, right? At least certain elements.
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with a lot of institutions. So a lot of our aspects are, work with the institutional audits. But for every new product that comes out, we do a lot of like internal auditing. Then it goes through to our partners. So we have like multiple validators, we have advisors that help us, go through those auditing phase, and then we go to the third party auditors that give us that have experience of managing these very critical aspects of any part of the projects. So right now, to mention is like we are going to launch our product called P-Stake, which is a liquid staking application, and it has gone through that internal auditing, then our external partner auditing, and now it's just going to third party auditing. It is in that phase. So yes, like auditing is a very critical part for Persistence, and mainly so because we're not just creating crypto native products, we are also creating institutional products. So if I missed out on saying, is Persistence is an ecosystem of both institutional applications as well as crypto native applications. So to attract institutional applications, first requirement is always security, because a lot of high value and critical data is being exchanged between two parties when it comes to institutions. So it is very important that that data is secure, that every transaction is secure. So yes.
All right. So there's a question from the audience for you. Hexable Archer asks, Abhitej, what are your thoughts on Hollywood getting in on the NFT market? Is this the future or a fad?
So let's talk about how internet evolved, right? So what was internet first supposed to be? It was for the nerds, which as people call it, and people like me, who coming from computer science background, it was like it's just the geeky stuff. They're going to just send emails, exchange some documents over the internet. But that has evolved to become now the biggest source of information, biggest source for people to express their views, ideas, share videos, create content, and we see a lot of things now happening on the internet. Right? It's the same as for NFTs as well. But the unique proposition of NFTs is it makes any scarce, any valuable asset, or any sort of unique thing very easy to exchange. And you don't need mediators to verify the uniqueness or scarcity of that asset at every stage. And when you talk about Hollywood itself, like the biggest problem with into entertainment industry, for example, like Hollywood, is piracy. So you create you create a video, but how do you know that it was a unique idea of somebody and it's not copied? Because what might happen is sometimes you have a great video that you can create, but somebody with more influence then copies the same video, same choreography, maybe same music content, and then they sell it as their own, that they were the unique creator, or they were the original creator of that particular, say, video, or that particular tune, whatever it is, right? But Hollywood getting into NFTs is actually a great motivation, because that shows that how much potential is there for NFTs, and they understand it very early, at early stage. So we would see royalties in form of NFTs. We would see contracts, like the basically the entertainment contracts on NFTs. That means is like if somebody creates a movie, somebody creates a short movie, short videos, it would be in form of NFTs. Now you could verify that a trend or a video back to who was the original creator of that. And so we are in very nascent stage still, but there is so much potential that is just being so many use cases that are coming into it. And always when you have so many multiple use cases coming into an industry, that industry sort of grows, or I would say become the future of that industry. So NFTs would be one of the biggest things in the entertainment industry. That's what I believe. Ownership would be easy. Auditability of royalties will be very easy. Sharing the the which we say like royalties right now is like what we're seeing in NFTs as space itself is like creators are getting their share at every resell, or every time when an NFT is sold in a secondary market, the creator get automatically the share of it. So there's no middle party that is managing it. That's the biggest aspect. Like a lot of times small creators are actually wrecked because of this fact that their assets become very valuable, but they don't get the original share that they deserve, or they were entitled for. So NFT solve that problem very easily, right? So yeah, that's what I believe.
Yeah, I think that NFTs are like amazing for creators specifically. There's someone sort of, I think, just being rude and messing around, but he says that NFTs are trash that they're getting wrecked on.
I mean, it's a price that you pay for an experiment. That's what I believe in. And drawing an analogy, I would say, as people were paying more than $20-$30 to make a 1 minute or 2 minutes call back in 1960s, 1970s, or 1980s, communication through phone was so difficult. Today, you don't even pay cents to do that. So any new technology that comes in, you have to and there is this initial the traction is based on like how much people are interested, and value is always higher. But once it gets to mainstream, once it gets massively adopted, the cost always goes lower. So the cost of acquiring that technology goes down. We have seen that with, as I said, I'm just taking recent examples. We have seen that in telephone industry, or we have seen that in telecommunication industry. We have seen that in internet space. We have seen that in entertainment space, where you would earlier pay what, $5, $6 to rent one movie. Today you get $5. You get a Netflix subscription of $5, and you have access to endless sources of media. I mean, there are well, I don't know the exact number, but I'm sure there are tens and thousands of movies. So the cost of acquiring that technology has gone significantly down. Same would happen with NFTs as well over time.
So someone says something, I want to read his comment, and then I want to respond, and then I want to give you the chance to respond. So BG Hex says, the bear market will expose the nonsense of spending ungodly amounts of money for JPEGs. BG Hex, we're talking about enterprise NFTs. So yeah, we are talking about art and NFTs right now in this current time, but Persistence One is like, that's not the only use case for NFTs. One thing, one example I think that's really common in the case of Persistence, talking about NFTs, is like shipping invoices that often go months without being paid. Well, you can collateralize those as NFTs so that the companies have access to some of the funds while they wait for those invoices to be paid. Is that right? Like, we're not just talking about buying, spending ungodly amounts of money for JPEGs, okay? And then he continues and says, I'll keep my trustless interest paid in the highest appreciated asset going right now. Cool. Nobody's asking you to buy Persistence, but I do think that it's important that we have these conversations so that we're not going around saying things like, NFTs are trash and they're just JPEGs that you could screenshot that you're paying ungodly amounts of money for, because that's burning bridges with communities that are really heavily invested and involved in the NFT space without being educated, which sounds very similar to how a lot of people were with DeFi projects like Hex at the beginning. So please mellow out your anger, okay? All right, do you have anything to say?
No, I understand, and thank you so much for giving that, response. And what I think is the community itself is getting mature. They are still figuring out what it is. A lot of people see, because it's, how the pop culture evolves. People right now just see NFTs associated with crypto art and collectible. So that's what the only use case that they see. But there are multiple projects that are working on NFTs with multiple regards and use cases that are not, they're not associated to paying ungodly amounts of money. It's about how you can leverage to create uniqueness. So as Nicole mentioned, how Persistence is bringing invoices, shipping invoices, business documents, and in future we plan to bring multiple other real world assets that are unique onto these on-chain, including certain sort of agreements that you would have, contracts that you would have between two parties. Now every contract is unique. Now how would you represent that on-chain? You have to have that unique representation of those assets on-chain. So how you do that? So you would do that through NFTs. As I gave another example is royalties. How would you create royalties on chain? You would have NFTs for it. Identities, and how in future you would have unique identities, and domains are a great example, but we would see multiple other sorts of identities that we have to bring on chain. That would be through NFTs. So we're still in a very early stage there, and NFTs, as the scope goes, is much much beyond what just art and collectibles right now are. We will see there are already projects like Persistence that have always seen that long-term vision for the space itself, and using this technology to build bridges between different two technologies. For us, it's traditional finance and bringing crypto together. And as you gave a great example is, once you have NFTs, these real world documents on chain, you could leverage them in multiple ways. You could use them to collateralize or it's I have a shipping invoice. So that's trade receivable. That means I have to pay 10,000, somebody has to pay me $10,000. And now this is binded on chain. It's immutable. You cannot change it. Somebody cannot just ignore the fact that they have to pay $10,000. So what happens is, now I have this invoice or in form of NFTs. What I can do is put this as collateral and then borrow stable coins against it to finance my real world business, right? So this is a great example. The other way is now the exchange now becomes much simpler. Now there could be other traders, there could be other like other users of that application that can basically the transaction now between of that asset becomes much simpler because it's not complicated. You're not passing on the every time the ownership is not doesn't go through that tedious process of signing all the documents, and every time the ownership there has to be a mediator that verifies that ownership. Now you have those assets on chain, so every time the hands are changed for that asset, it's recorded on chain, and that is auditable. You can go back in time and trace like where this assets was coming from and where how many hands it has changed. Has it gone to somebody who is like, for example, somebody with like financial fraud background or something like that, and then that saves you, right? Sometimes you don't know like asset how many places that to change, because in traditional space a lot of things can be changed. The books are changed, the documents are changed, but often a lot of forgery happens. All those issues are solved with blockchain, especially with respect to bringing real world assets on chain through NFTs. So
Here's a really, really good question, Russ, and it's something I was going to kind of bring up as a possibility. I don't know if we're going to be able to get a finite answer, but so Russ asks, is there a way to sell a Hex stake with an NFT? So I kind of, right before we went on air, briefly explained about Hex, being blockchain-based CDs. So people have stakes that are sometimes, like, let's say, I don't know, you have a stake and it's locked. I told you it can be locked for up to 15 years. It could be locked for one day or a month. You choose the terms. But so let's say that you wanted to sell a stake that you had, the private keys to a stake. Would that be possible to do with an NFT?
So from my understanding, I would say is you don't essentially need an NFT for this, because it's already on chain, it's unique, and it's like a fungible asset, because a lot of other people would also hold Hex stake. But now when you say is like, say for example, Hex has this offering of different lockups. Say for example, there are multiple different sort of so somebody unique person holds like Hex stake, and when like stakes when in future would be, say when you would have like different when different sorts of properties are attached to an asset, then it becomes unique, right? So like who owns it, and for example at what time this was sold, so the values are differ from the time that they were sold, and for example what is, say, different asset might have like different interest rate at like a certain time, then they sort of become very unique assets, and those sort of stakes can be converted into NFTs. But in general, when we talk about assets that are fungible, that means is there are multiple same sort of asset exist in multiple variants, and there's no uniqueness to an asset. Like there's no differentiating factor between two same copies of that asset. Then that essentially doesn't need an NFTs, or if that clarifies. But I did see some questions around like how a creator, like if somebody is creating a podcast, somebody is creating a music, so attach a specific NFT to specific piece of content. For instance,
Thank you, Russ.
Each song or each podcast show, definitely. You can absolutely create like an NFT for your podcast. So your each podcast, since it is unique, you could have like an NFT for it. And then what it makes is you don't need now mediator platforms to sell, or they're taking shares. So you could have podcasts hosted on your platform, and say for example you are creating content. And I was talking to Nicole before this, is a great example is when what happens is when you consistently you create some sort of content. For example, like a great example is Mr. Beast, right? Now everyone knows Mr. Beast, but when he did his first video, maybe not a lot of people knew him, right? A great example, other example could be like a lot of content creators. Logan Paul has just done an NFT. Gary Vee creates a lot of content. Now, what happens is you over time, when you consistently keep creating content and you keep adding value, your content becomes very valuable. Right? And what happens in this case is, for example, you have now 100 podcast episodes. And now on your 100 podcasts, you've become so famous that everyone wants to hear your podcast. Example is Naval, right? Nawal's podcast, everyone wants to hear. Now, what happens is if you convert each of your podcasts in form of NFTs, the value of your podcast over time just keeps on increasing. So like somebody buy, and it's happening with tweets, but somebody say, for example, buys your podcast as soon as you define the ownership of your podcast to somebody else, like you transferred that ownership. Now they are the rightful owner of that, ownership of that music video, that podcast. So you basically sold them, excuse me.
So yeah, that's awesome. I see Marcavelli, you're saying so NFTs for like a receipt. That's a thought that I've had before too. I am not like, I don't think that that's what Abhitej is saying, but I do think that that's a possibility, like a digital receipt. And then Sig Hex, this is a very interesting topic. I'm starting to update my worldview of NFTs and seeing a unique market use case. Thank you. See, so that's what I've been trying to say is that, there are your ways of viewing NFTs. There are things that are like, why are you spending thousands of dollars on a JPEG, image? That's true. That exists, but that doesn't mean that that's all that exists. So that's really why I wanted Abhitej to come on this show today. And I appreciate everyone for, being open to hearing it. Sorry, Abhitej, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I was just saying is like what you do is like as your reputation grows, as the value of each NFTs like that is associated to say your brand, your podcast just like keeps on growing. So when you're making your 100 podcast and now it's so valuable, like everyone wants to get their hands on. So the value of that 100 podcast would be significantly higher. But that would also mean is your different podcast value would also grow significantly multifold, because now a reputation, maybe that's off-chain reputation, maybe that's on-chain reputation, that now gets associated to that particular NFT. And a very interesting, like what I was discussing with Nicole is, for example, people talk about people's first 500 days of art. They say is like, it's insane to buy like a art piece for $69 million, but they don't see that it's people's 13 years of work. He has been consistently building art pieces. Now, what happens is, if you have to truly ask me, it's still undervalued, and over time it will become more valuable as people keeps creating more valuable art pieces. And if, say, for example, he becomes the symbol for digital art, like he becomes that popular symbol. He's the symbolism for popular crypto art or digital art in general. So any sort of art piece that he might have will be valued at a very high price. And same as, for example, why today we want to, like, Mona Lisa is valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. Reason is particularly because the original creator of such paintings, and I'm just not taking example of Mona Lisa, but multiple such paintings, what happens is the original creator creates multiple very valuable assets or multiple paintings or creations, and then that reputation gets associated with each of their art pieces, and that is what we will see. So yes, if somebody wants to create our podcast and they want to sell it as an NFTs, I believe you should do it. If you haven't, like Nicole, you're creating great videos, maybe why not start with your videos? Like your videos can be as form of NFTs from coming forward.
Maybe like my TikToks could be NFTs,
yes.
But I feel like this information, I want it to be free so that people can, like I don't want you to have to pay for it. You know what I mean?
I mean, nobody has to, like, this is a misconception if it is, like, nobody, like, it's like, if you look at NBA shots, it's not that those NBA shots were like they're priced to see now. You cannot go back and see them, but certain person owns that, like, so sort of owns the ownership of that moment. Those are the NBA moments, as it's called, is now it's, I can say, for example, it's not that somebody didn't know what Michael Jordan did, like what his career looked like a playing card that you would hold. It's not that information nobody else knows. It's that you own that car that was made once, a moment that was lived once. Now you have a certain, stake in it. You have the ownership of that moment, and that is how it just gets associated. It's not like it wouldn't be accessible to audience. Of course, some art pieces can be very exclusive, and or they're not shared um, outside with other people and just shared in like closed communities and through NFTs. But all of the other things that we are seeing, you could see it. I mean, everyone can see Mona Lisa, but nobody can own it. The ownership is for certain institution, and similarly would happen with other NFTs, and in future as well. Yeah.
So, okay, couple of things really quick. Okay, some Marcavelli, who earlier was saying some negative things about NFTs, said, okay, so NFTs for like a receipt and it would be like a way for copyright. Yes, it's like a way to prove the ownership trail, and also a way so that the original owner or the original creator gets subsequent royalties on subsequent sales. Another thing, okay, here's a great question. Crypto Ewok, what about the use of a shipping container? You could have a fleet of them available for people to use. Could you use this to rent and track them trustlessly? I got to take my phone to my daughter, so I'm going to mute myself and be right back. But Abhitej, I think you can take that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what happens is, yeah, of course, yeah, they could be a platform, and like one of those use cases, what we're creating for commodity trading in form of Comdex. So what you could have is basically, you could have in future, what we would have is different containers that could be listed on these marketplaces, and anyone can sort of buy, like take the rent for those containers on this platform, and it would be a decentralized manner. Is, for example, what happens today on Amazon is, or any e-commerce platform is, Amazon is the enforces trust. So Amazon brings trust between buyer and seller. So for bringing that trust, they take a cut in each transaction that is being done between the buyer and seller. And what also happens is, Amazon has the visibility to each of this transaction, what cost negotiations are being done. So Amazon then can launch products that basically cut into this difference of cost price, selling price, or what is we call it like seller's cost to buyer's cost, and they can say make it $1 cheaper, they can make $2 cheaper, and that way how they Amazon or any sort of these monopolies do is, they sort of jump in and then they kill the smaller sellers through their products, because they of course have more cost efficient solutions. But when you bring these solutions on chain, even though, say for example, Comdex doesn't have direct access to buyers and sellers data, what transactions are being made on Comdex, Comdex doesn't have that visibility into it. And that's the beauty of blockchain, is that you get that security and you don't need middlemen to bring that trust. That means as the cost also significantly reduces for this. And a great, we are seeing this in payments as well, where now a great example is Terra, where how they are being able to create like very efficient payments is because the cost of this middleman goes very down, middlemen like Visa, MasterCard, where they take the cuts, like the
You're muted.
payment gateways. So yeah, that's how just give me a second.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's see. There was something. No one has copyright. Oh, I think I have seen a project called NFTs. I haven't paid very much attention to it. Marcavelli, if you bought, let's say, a Joe Rogan podcast, how are you going to use it? You would need a whole Spotify network for uses of NFTs. Isn't it just easier to sell advertising and keep your copyright of your pod?
So before, just concluding on the earlier aspect is like, yes, you could list these containers that you might have, or any sort of asset that you might have, you want to rent out, you want to share, like there is any sort of buyer and seller. And that's what one of the key things what Persistence SDK allows us. SDK is our toolkit on top of which we can make multiple different financial products. What it allows us, one of the use case is marketplaces. So you can create any sort of marketplace that involves buyer and seller. So if somebody is interested in creating a platform, I do suggest them to look into Persistence SDK. And if they understand, coding a little bit and the programming, and they can code it. But we're also coming with an asset mantle, which is like NFT marketplace framework. Anyone will be able to create their own NFT marketplace without coding. So that's like a zero coding platform you could create on top of Asset Mantle. It's just a framework, like how you create Shopify stores. Like you don't need, there is a template, you just put your assets in there and then it becomes a store. And same as what Persistence is doing with Asset Mantle, there would be an entire template, everything related to what are the key requirements for making an NFT marketplaces would be already there. You just have to put your assets and you could do it. Jumping onto the next question of where somebody said that why would I want to sell off my copyright to somebody else and then keep earning revenues on advertisements? I feel that's a choice. As I said, what happens is when you keep on creating different sort of, you say if you have been creating content for a very long period of time, as I said earlier, or you've been creating high value, any sort of unique thing, maybe that's an art piece, maybe that is form of content, maybe that's form of advices, or like your investment strategies, any of those things, right? People have known you for creating that value. Now, what happens is, how do you translate that value into an token? Or basically, you tokenize that. So you productize it in a different manner, as where it becomes a financial product, right? So when we talk about collectibles, I've shared a tweet as well, a tweet thread on top of it is like, how did playing cards or any sort of we had baseball balls and all of that became financial products. Like today you have playing cards that are worth tens of millions. I mean, how, like, when it talks, it's just paper, it just has like one picture. How is now a financial product? Like nobody is playing with those cards, is what I'm going to say. Is nobody is sitting with their friends and playing with those playing cards. Now they're sort of financial products. How they become a financial product is what you have done is you saw there's a unique value attributed to a certain sort of, these cards were unique. Now what had happened was what started happening is people started trading those. Say for example, somebody said, I have a Michael Jordan card, and Michael Jordan had this reputation of being the best NBA player. Now, if somebody has a Michael Jordan card, that means they have this unique attribute, like the unique asset, which is very valuable just because of the other attributes attached to it. Here, the reputation of Michael Jordan, the performance of the Michael Jordan. Now, if you say as I have a Michael Jordan card, it can trade this with you for another 4 cards. So, for example, back in time, I'm just saying when Michael Jordan was playing, I traded Michael Jordan card for Kobe Bryant card, LeBron James card, and say Stephen Curry. I'm just taking the recent name, and you have multiple of you bought say 4 best NBA players cards that are today. So back then you just traded that. Now each of those cards itself is very highly valuable. So what has become a trade. How you would do it for Bitcoin, for example, you trade Bitcoin for Ethereum, and then Ethereum becomes more valuable. So you bought when Ethereum was just $100 and Bitcoin, said, for example, Ethereum was $1,000. Just taking recent example, Bitcoin was 60. You bought 60 Ethereum for it, for one Bitcoin. Now what happens is Ethereum's value went to become 2,000. So basically, what you bought for 60,000 now is 120,000, right? So same as like this asset exchange makes it very easy. So why, when somebody says copyright is like, why would I would just want to keep copyright and just keep on accumulating advertising? Then it's a way of passive income. It's not directly a financial product. But say, for example, I tokenize my podcast. Now it becomes a financial product. I can trade that for other values. You have a Joe Rogan podcast with, say, for example, Joe Rogan with like, I'm just like, who would be the best like example? So for example,
let's just say Richard Hart, just because.
Yeah, Richard. Yeah, just like say, for example, he did with Richard Hart, or he did with Queen Elizabeth, for example, a podcast with Queen Elizabeth. Now, Queen Elizabeth, with her reputation and figure that she is in the world, that podcast is very valuable, right? Now you have this Joe Rogan podcast, which is a financial product. Now you can trade it for multiple other emerging podcasters. For example, somebody bought it for Pom's podcast. Now, Pom's over time reputation keeps on compounding, and he becomes like a significant figure from like he's already a very significant figure, but he becomes like as the crypto grows, he becomes like one of the biggest influencers in the space, like when it comes to value creation. Now you have that, and you can have like podcasts of other people as well, right? So like other podcasters, and now all of them are financial products. So this is the value we are talking about.
There you go. Someone said, I traded to get all the Michael Jordan cards in my 5th grade class. I lost those cards moving. If they were NFTs, maybe I'd still have their value. Yeah, there you go. All right, here's one more question, and then I want to ask you one thing, kind of wrap this up because we're getting to an hour. So Hexable Archer asked, Abhitej, is it true to say attaching an NFT to something gives it an immutable serial number forever, and it can be searched for anywhere using that serial number?
Absolutely. I mean, that is the value of NFT, right? You bring this unique identity, like unique attributes, you attach it to a digital token, and then that digital token can be traced back to its origination. So for example, some NFT that we mint today, for the blockchain, like it is minted on blockchain. That means it is logged today, day one, that this asset is created. So the blockchain exists for 100 years. This asset on chain will also exist for 100 years. This is not going to get lost in archives. This is not going to get, say, decayed in archives of some National Archive. You don't need to hold like physical copy of this certificate. Yes, I had this asset. It was minted on this date. It's on chain. You just have to go to an explorer. You have to just type on like, hey, this is my NFT's hash. So, and the hash is associated, that's the unique number, that is serial number, as the gentleman talked about. You could just type in that serial number and you would see all the details related to that NFTs. Who have been the past owners of that NFT? When was this NFT minted? What is the current value of this NFT? At what values it has traded? Who is the creator of this NFT? On which chain it was minted? Because how persistence is working, it's trying to create assets like NFT Marketplace that would have assets from all different chains, right? So you need to know on which chain it was minted. Was it Ethereum? Was it Polkadot? Was it Cosmos? Or was it persistence itself? And so all of that information can be seen in. And if allows, I can you can basically take an example. You could go out, pick up any NFT today from OpenSea, and you could just take the hash of that NFT, put it in an explorer, which is for example, for Ethereum assets, you could just put it on Etherscan, and you would see all the details related to it.
Yeah, so a bunch of people are saying that's going to be a powerful tool. That's amazing. Some people are saying that they're warming up to NFTs. Maybe, Staker app, maybe Hex creating its own chain will sort of open people's eyes up more to that. And that's really a huge part of why I wanted to bring you here today. Because I wanted to sort of begin this relationship building so that there isn't, so much hostility. Oh, NFTs are just garbage. And, though people said NFTs are garbage, forget them. So I want to, before we're going to be done taking questions, guys, thank you so much for everything. Abhitej, thank you so much for being here. Do you want to quickly shill Persistence, where people can learn about it? If anybody wants to buy it, where they can do that?
Absolutely. So, I would say Persistence as a project is trying to create multiple products. So we are operating on 3 different layers. One is networking layer, where we have all our validators. We have created our own chain, and which just gives us that flexibility to create multiple use cases with that. We are a Tendermint-based chain. On top of it, we have our own SDK. SDK is a toolkit with which not just Persistence, but anyone can build their own products on top of Persistence SDK in Persistence ecosystem. We have a lot of modules that make life of developers very easy, and even institutions that we have document provenance, we have identity management, we have reputation management, asset right control. So a lot of those modules that currently don't exist in other SDKs for institutions, for developers, like inter NFT modules where they could have cross-chain NFTs, and all of that is already coded. You would have like a standardized system, so your NFTs can basically exist on Ethereum, Polkadot, Binance Smart Chain, Cosmos, all of these, and you don't have to write those standards. And on top of it, we are building our own applications. So we have institutional applications, which are like large trading organizations or large auction houses when it comes to art pieces. We are working with other like traditional financial institutions. And then we have like crypto native applications like liquid staking. We're bringing DeFi platforms where like borrowing lending can happen. In future, we are building this asset mentor, which is NFT marketplaces framework, but we will create NFT marketplaces, different NFT marketplaces. And so, what happens is any project that has multiple products and they're all like the value is integrated, it becomes that ecosystem becomes highly valuable. A great example of it is Terra, right? Where Terra built one product and after another product and after another product, and the value was getting accumulated in the ecosystem. And now Terra is one of the top projects in the space. And following a very similar model is Persistence is also building multiple products. So we have a lot of in-house products, but we would also have a lot of third-party products that would spin up in Cosmos, whether they're Cosmos based, whether they're Ethereum based, whether they're Polkadot based. But if they would be integrated to Persistence SDK, they would be part of a Persistence ecosystem. And all the activity that is happening on the application layer, on these different applications, the entire value is getting churned into XPRT token. So, which is our native token, XPRT token. So XPRT token is basically, I have to put simple way, it's like a great gateway to getting access to all application at once. So because you're getting passive income, which is a form of cash flows from all different applications activities. So there are 2 ways you can earn on XPRT tokens. One is staking rewards. And staking rewards for Persistence token, which is XPRT, are very high, which is 35%. So you can earn 35% rewards just by staking your XPRT token. On top of it, you are getting cash flows from all different applications, which is like the fee that is being accumulated on these applications is shared with XPRT stakers. Mm-hmm. So, it's a great asset for somebody to earn like passive income from all the applications at once. You get access to all different applications just by holding XPRT. So you don't have to own multiple assets to get, and that's how we see as like more and more applications that come into persistence ecosystem, more and more the value of XPRT will appreciate. And that's what we want to do is we want to create we created XPRT that in a way that it gives a lot of value for each of to each XPRT holder over time. So if anyone wants to buy an XPRT token, currently it's available on SNX, which was BitMax. You can go and happy to share here itself the link, but you can right now go and buy there. But soon we would be listing on other exchanges as well. We would be listing on DEXs also, majorly. Right now it's Cosmos DEX is coming up, so you could buy from there. And let me see, market.
So guys, I'm an XPRT staker. LDA, Linear Digital Assets, has been paid in part for the last several months for the work in tokens. When the tokens were distributed, we were asked to vote on what we wanted to do. Did we want to cash them out or did we want to stake them? And we voted unanimously to stake them.
Yeah, so just sharing the link here for anyone who wants to get. So can I share the link here?
Yeah, you should be able to post in the comments.
Okay, right now I don't see it, but I'm sharing it in the private chat. If you can just share with the community.
Scott, I've asked Brenna before to talk to me, and she said that she doesn't like doing interviews. I would love to talk with Brenna anytime if she's changed her position on that.
Yeah, so I've just shared with you, Nicole.
You shared it with me in a private? Okay, I'll share it in the...
Yeah, if somebody wants to. Okay. Yeah, and thank you so much, everyone, for having me today and talking about NFTs. Hey, Nicole, I thought I'd ask you.
Yeah, I accidentally.
Yeah. But I was just saying, thank you so much, Nicole, for having me today and talking about NFTs. I believe it is one of the most interesting topics, and we would see so much discussions around this as the industry matures. We would see a lot of other use cases. When it comes to persistence, I believe so what the entire team believes in the name itself is persistence. We have persisted bear market. We have persisted, different hostile situations when it comes to whatever capital crunches, and there were problems with just gaining access to people because of COVID. Now everything was shut down. We have persisted all those situations. We have built product, even we built 4 products before a launch itself, or launch of XPRT token. And now we're not going to stop. We're just going to get more and more products and keep building and building and building, keep growing an ecosystem. So yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to talk about persistence as well here.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And there's this thing that I do at the end where I kind of build a bridge with my guest.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. It's this side. Where is this side?
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah. It's the opposite of how it looks. There we go. We built a bridge, guys. Thank you so much for being here, Abhitej. Thank you for joining me and taking the time out of your day, everyone. Next week my daughter is coming on this show because she wants to talk to the community about how she can make money with cryptocurrencies. So that's going to be fun. Like I said, I'll be adding a second day this week. So I will let you guys know details about that very, very soon. Right after this, I'm going to be in the Telegram group for Quick Swap because I'm behind on what's going on there. So if you want to hang out, that's where I'll be. Okay.
Sure. Okay, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It was a good time. Thank you so much.
All right. End the broadcast.